Good afternoon. I'm very honored to be here. Let me preface my speech by saying I have a Baptist preacher background. So there's going to be some call and response. The great ancestor James Baldwin once said, "To be black in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be in a rage almost all the time." I would add that to be black or brown, an activist, and an educator in this country is to be angry, tired, and hurt all the time. As a 15-year educator who is black, I have seen some things that hurt. It hurts to know that of the 1,398 children suspended from Howard County Public Schools in the 2021-2022 school year, 869 of those were black. In other words, black students make up only 24% of all students in this county, yet they comprise over 60% of the students who were suspended. It hurts to know that after decades of research, after committees and task forces have been charged with diversifying our teacher workforce, still only 29% of all staff in the Howard County Public School System, and that's not just teaching staff, that's all staff, is considered diverse by MSDE's definition. It hurts to know that after attending numerous school board meetings, publicly testifying at local and state levels, marching through the streets of downtown Columbia, holding teach-ins, and sitting down to have conversations with legislators, we still have armed police officers walking the hallways of our schools and arresting black children for making childlike mistakes at a disproportionate rate. How disproportionate, you ask? Black students are arrested 3 times more often than their white peers for the same things. Someone say, ouch. Ouch. And it hurts, my brothers and sisters in the struggle, to be about this anti-racist work day in and day out when it seems like it is to no avail. We watch the training module on anti-racism, and when it's over, they go right back to talking about our black and brown babies like they are criminals or subhuman. They are woke during the professional development. Y'all ain't hear me, right? They're woke during the discussions, but sharing their growth and their insights, but they don't call on the black students in their classrooms because subconsciously they don't think they can answer the questions anyway. And so their expectations are low. We are showing up to these battles wounded. People might suggest that we should give up the fight because the harm, HARM, to ourselves is too great. H, having to constantly defend your seat at the table. As an activist, I am constantly having to prove that I'm competent and capable, not only to the opposition now, but to those who are supposed to be allies and co-conspirators. The black bourgeoisie who have capitulated to the, can I talk about it today?
Yes, please. Talk about it.
Who have capitulated to the white supremacist ideal that there's only one right way to do things, always have something to say about your work. They look at how many members my organization has, how much money we've raised, whether or not I'm invited to the galas and the events, how many conferences have you spoken at? I can say I've spoken at one, right? If I've written a book, how long have I been doing the work? And the list goes on. A, always wondering if you are enough. Being a black activist in white spaces can lead to major imposter syndrome. I find myself questioning if I am there because I earned it or because I am the diversity hire or the token black participant. Do they keep me around because I know what I'm talking about or because they need a representative from the black community. I'll be sharing some stories today if that's all right with y'all. So, first story. In 2016, here in Howard County, a high school teacher asked students to write their own slave song and, y'all remember this? Y'all remember this? And in the written directions, emphasized that it was supposed to be a fun assignment. Well, Twitter got a hold of it. The teacher was called to the carpet, and I was contacted to help with the damage control. Yeah. The union folks called me and they contacted me, essentially wanted me to use my blackness to give this teacher reprieve. I told them on the phone that what she said was culturally insensitive, that she should apologize, that it was racist, and that she and all teachers need to go through diversity, equity, and inclusion training. The response I was given was, thanks but no thanks. I didn't give them the answer they wanted, so I was no longer enough. Somebody shout, I'm not an imposter.
I'm not an imposter.
I belong here whether you like it or not.
I belong here whether you like it or not.
R, realizing that the odds may never be in your favor. When we think we are making progress, when we think that we are moving the needle, folks show their true colors. When we think that we live in a progressive community, they invite Jason Aldean, I don't even know how to say the man's name, the country music racist, to hold a concert at Merriweather Post Pavilion, and droves of people go to attend. When we think the number of people who are anti-racist in their thinking and practices are on the increase, it seems as though there are more Moms for Liberty members making noise. No matter how hard you work, it would seem that the opposition has the upper hand. And then M in harm. Multiple microaggressive moments. If I had $1 for every time there was a microaggression against me, I could retire, y'all. I remember being asked to rap out the lyrics to a song in the middle of a collaborative team planning meeting at my school by my principal. At Towson, I was asked why I didn't choose to go to an HBCU as they were better designed to teach people like me. I remember being told that I am so well-spoken. I remember being the only black person on my grade level team and it being assumed that I would teach the Kwanzaa rotation during holiday time. I remember being asked by a caregiver in the community, Mr. VS, it'd be nice to see you dress ghetto every once in a while. Someone shout microaggressions. But let me offer, there is hope, y'all. But let me offer my brothers and sisters that although we have taken some hits, we as activists can still continue the fight. We can keep moving forward. We can still heal, be healed while healing. So then the question becomes, how do we continue this fight while simultaneously needing to heal? How can we keep working while wounded? Well, I'm glad you asked. I'll leave you with 3 P's and I'll be out your way. The first P is you have to understand that persecution is par for the course. Somebody say, if you don't have haters, you aren't doing it right. I used to be a teacher union activist here in Howard County. I raised thousands of dollars for their political action committee. I chaired their government relations committee for years. I led them to victory in election after election. But the work of union activism at this level was missing the black liberation element. The union prioritized nonpartisan issues and issues that directly impacted the white majority. So I decided to organize black educators, brown educators, and educators of color around issues that were important to them, like retention and recruitment of educators of color. I applied for a grant through the National Education Association, and I got this grant. And that's when things started to take a turn. Somebody say, oh boy.
Oh boy.
So the Educators of Color Coalition was born. And we met regularly to connect, learn, and grow together. And it became an affinity space for educators who often felt like they were left at the margins. Our group decided to champion the Black Lives Matter at School Week of Action before it was a cool thing. In fact, it was this group that single-handedly brought the movement to Howard County. The leadership tried to keep the Black Lives Matter at School Week of Action from being supported because the idea of Black Lives Mattering was too divisive for the membership. But somebody said, we did it anyway. Yeah, we did it anyway. The coalition outlined a series of demands for the Howard County Public School System, such as creating a system of tracking administrator and supervisor hiring practices over time to determine if there are racist trends. We demanded an increase in professional development school partnerships with historically Black colleges and universities. We demanded creating a standing committee with human resources whose purpose is to examine practices and to remove barriers to hiring educators of color. Leadership didn't like this, but we delivered the demands to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Director at the time anyway.
That's right.
You can clap it up. We're pretty excited about that. The white union leadership went on to operationalize their hate for our movement by dismantling the Educators of Color Coalition, citing that I was trying to start a new union. In the midst of this persecution, I remember my moment of clarity. I thought to myself that if my ancestors had their churches burned down, their family members jailed, if my ancestors lost their jobs or worse in this fight for liberation, who am I to be removed from the storm for doing the work? Karen's pettiness, as vile as it was, is to be expected for my service to the community. But maybe that's the problem with some of us in this work. Some activists give up because performative acts promote ease. I'm going to say that again for those in the back. Some of us give up because performative acts promote ease. Purposeful acts bring about persecution. Somebody say, we're not here to put on a show.
We're not here to put on a show.
Persecution brings lessons that help heal. During this trial, I learned that persecution is going to come, and sometimes it may even come from the most unlikely places. But the quicker we accept that persecution goes hand in hand with anti-racist activism, the sooner we can learn the lesson and move on. Tell your neighbor, dust yourself off and learn from this. Some lessons learned. Lesson 1, I cannot do the work of liberating Black, brown, indigenous educators and educators of color and students of color within a system that was designed for our demise. Therefore, lesson number 2, I learned that from this persecution that I had to create an entity unto itself, one that does not answer to a union that is deeply steeped in white supremacy. As a result, the Anti-Racist Education Alliance Incorporated was founded. My 501c3 dedicated to dismantling white supremacy in our schools and classrooms through relationship, service, and advocacy. And then lesson number 3, I learned that situations like these make me stronger. And that is going to help somebody right now, because you may be in the midst of persecution, but if you can hold fast, you will be a stronger, wiser, better you on the other side. This work is not without risk. Somebody say, count the cost.
Count the cost.
And then my next P is passion will push you through. Tell the person next to you, find that fire.
Find that fire.
I have worked with hundreds of Black and brown children over the years. Things got real for me when Genesis and I had our first child. Being a conscious father of a beautiful Black boy, I realized that my son will have it tough in the public school system. Because of the deep love for my son and those like him, somebody say my passion, I decided to take my advocacy to the state level. During the Maryland State Education Association's annual conference, I made a motion for the union to support the banning of suspensions and expulsions for children in pre-K and kindergarten. I cited that the research that suspension rates were disproportionate and that it was developmentally inappropriate to level such a consequence against 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. This motion threw the rep assembly into a tizzy. Educators in the group would say things like, "You don't know how disruptive these children can be. We have to do something to teach them a lesson." One educator said, "What if they mess up my bulletin boards?"
Oh, God.
After wordsmithing and an amendment to add the clause, in essence saying that they could be suspended for bringing a firearm to school or being an imminent threat to themselves and others, the motion did eventually carry. My passion to see Black and brown babies thrive in school and my passion to create a restorative culture in schools for them and for my son in the future drove me to Annapolis, where I testified in support of a bill that mirrored the motion I had made and MSCA's Rep Assembly. The bill became law that year. Now in the state of Maryland, if you are in pre-K through second grade, suspensions and expulsions are not allowed, unless of course they bring a firearm. I want to illustrate why it is important to allow your passion to push you through the hurt. Fast forward a few years later. My son has been diagnosed with ADHD combined type and anxiety. He is now a neurodivergent black boy in public schools. Someone say intersectionality matters. I was out to dinner with my daughter and two of my favorite people, and we were eating at Busboys and Poets, and I get a phone call that they were going to suspend my first grade son because he had a crisis event that day. Because I let my passion push me through years ago. Y'all aren't hearing me. Because I let my passion push me through years ago, and I did not give up the fight in spite of my wounds, guess what law I was able to cite and get alternative discipline from my son? Is there anybody? Is there anybody out there today that has a passion? You may be tired, but start that business. Your passion will push you through. You may have hit road bumps, but hold that event. Your passion will push you through. You may have had setback after setback, but apply for that job, go back to school, and find that passion that will push you through. Passion to fulfill your calling, passion for others, passion for your spiritual source will push you through the pain. Turn to your neighbor and say, I am going to leverage my passion in order to heal. And then my final point, and I'll get out y'all's way. Place people around you who will fill your bucket. Individualism and competitiveness are symptoms of westernized white supremacy culture. In this anti-racist work, we were meant to be in community. We were meant to collaborate. We were meant to partner. If you do not take the time to form connections with other people, then healing will take place much more slowly. However, there is a caveat to this message. As activists who are healing, we cannot allow anybody and everybody to define us, nor can we take to heart the opinions of everybody. The people we should listen to, Brené Brown in her book, Dare to Lead, would call them your square squad. People who care enough about you to be honest. People who love you not despite your imperfections and vulnerability, but because they simply love you. And then people who will point out when you have stepped out of your core values and will help you to correct yourself. As you're reflecting on those who are in your square squad, think of those moments of persecution. Who stayed around when others fell off? Who was there with you shooting in the gym? Who knows your story? Who speaks life into you? Remember, a wounded activist can still heal if they come to terms with the fact that persecution is par for the course in this work. You will face opposition. If you let your passion push you through the pain, find something that you love to do, and you will have no choice but to continue to pursue it. And then finally, place people in your space who will fill your bucket. Start leaning into your square squad. I would like to close with a quote from our ancestor, Dr. Mutulu Shakur. Brothers and sisters involved in our liberation have a right to struggle to be free. And because I have been a part of the struggle all my life, I will not capitulate and distance myself from their right to struggle in order for me to be free. To capitulate or surrender, to distance ourselves from the pain that comes from this deep work of liberation should not be an option. Somebody say, that's not an option.
That's not an option.
Instead, let's seek to heal as we seek to help heal others. Thank you.